Turning your Bibles to Isaiah 40. Isaiah 40. Very, very familiar passage. Isaiah 40, verse 31. It's actually a real great encouragement. Actually, let's go back to 30. Isaiah 40, verse 30. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. I'm going to read it from the King James. But those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. That key word, actually, when I read it in the NIV, the key word that I'm hitting this morning isn't in the NIV. So I looked it up in the original Hebrew. The Old Testament's written in Hebrew. The New Testament's written originally in Greek. And so whenever that's why using multiple translations is important. If you're King James only, wrong. If you're NIV only, wrong. You need the multiple translations, not because God changes his mind, but because you're going from ancient languages to this junior language of English. And for example, in the Old Testament, there are at least 12 different words that we translate into worship. But there's different innuendos to the Hebrew that we don't have in the English. So we miss out if we don't understand the original Hebrew. So in this case, but those who, the NIV says hope in the Lord, but the original Greek is closer to, but those who wait on the Lord. Wait. So my week goes this way. I preach on Sunday, and as soon as I'm done, I'm thinking, what's next, Lord? And I'm asking him right away, what do you want to say next? And sometimes I'll have, when I did the Angels and Demons series, that was 10 parts. That was information was just coming at me, and the Lord was speaking really loud, and I knew I was very deliberate in where we're going. But I'm not in the middle of a series right now. And so right away I'm thinking, God, I'm going to be standing in front of a bunch of people live and on the internet. I want to look somewhat coherent and like I'm ready. So the sooner you can tell me. So Monday comes. And so Sunday, it was just silence. Monday comes and I just said, Lord, what do you want to say to everybody through me on Sunday? And I just felt, again, I said it when I prayed, I hear the Lord all the time, but I've never heard him audibly. And it's kind of like it's somewhere deep inside. And sometimes I miss it and sometimes I catch it. This time I heard it clearly. I'll tell you later. What do you want me to say Sunday? I'll tell you later. And I went, okay, just go about my day. Well, Tuesday comes and goes because that's Rock Mission, and I'm not necessarily saying, sometimes a message will come out, out of one of the testimonies that come out of our own streets. But nothing comes to my spirit the Lord's not telling me. Wednesday is my ministry prep day. I stop everything to get ready for Sunday, to kind of look at what happened last Sunday when in the fall and winter. I'm planning my Bible study that I stream live on Wednesday nights. And Crystal and I quite often are on the front porch with our coffee talking about her podcast and Sunday morning message and Wednesday. And that's just our ministry day. Lord, what do you want me to say on Sunday? It was clear as day. I told you I'd tell you later. With a little caveat, don't you trust me? So I'm like, I want to be ready. I know, but you know that you don't go up there without my help. Lord saying this to me, and without my direction. So I'll tell you when I'm ready. And that's when I knew what my message was. I hate waiting. I hate waiting. And so I said, okay, Lord, what's my text? They that wait upon the Lord, that's when you'll renew your strength. That's when you'll mount up with wings as eagles. The verse before, the reason I hit that this morning is even youths grow tired and weary. That's when you'll get out of your tiredness and your weariness. When you wait, when you stop. When you wait. Well, I'll tell you, we live in what I've heard many times called the microwave generation. Where we have instant food, first of all, you get to stick it in the microwave. I remember our first big old microwave in the 80s. Dad brought it home. Wow, you can scramble eggs in this thing. I mean, I would never scramble an egg now, but we were looking through the thing, what do you call that? The manual? No, it was more than that. It was like a cookbook. It was a microwave cookbook. And wow, look what you can do. And I wouldn't do half of those things at the microwave, but boy, you can have your meal in 30 seconds. And to this day, we like, as a society, fast meals. And if you ask any doctor, the processed foods, and processed being defined as this, if you couldn't make it at home, it's probably processed, right? Jordan? Yeah. She's my nutritionist. If you couldn't make it at home, it's probably processed. And processed food is terrible for you. It's not good for you. It's actually killing us. But we love our instant so much that we choose to kill ourselves, essentially. I mean, that's very drastic. So instant food. Vehicles. I can be in Tennessee. I could leave here and be there by sundown to visit my brother. I could be anywhere in the world by tomorrow night. Anywhere in the world. Instant. And I love Chatham. If you're up by where we live, up St. Clair, we live on Glenwood there, and I gotta go all the way to the Travelodge on the other side, on the other corner of town, man. Because we love instant. Right? We love instant. There's a couple railway tracks, there's a couple lights. I remember driving from my kids, we lived on 5th Line, I'd drive the kids to high school. And I'd count 11 stoplights. And I would hit 8 or 9 of them, easily, the red light. Instant vehicles, credit cards. Remember what it was like to save money? Some of you have no idea. I remember my dad at the kitchen table, he had this box. And I remember the partitions in the box. And he'd get his paycheck. Paycheck was in the bank, and they would start with, and do you know what, this just comes to mind. Remember brooms? When you had to sweep things up? Now we need an instant, so we use vacuums. Sorry, I was distracted, I just wanted a little segue there. My dad would be sitting at the kitchen table, and you knew not to talk to him, by the way, on bill night. And he'd have his checkbook, and he'd write a check to the gas company, and he'd write his check to the phone company, and he'd write all his checks, and then he'd put them in envelopes and lick the envelopes and put stamps on them, and then he would take cash that he had pulled out, and that was the end of his bankroll, and he would put $50 for groceries, this much for gas, this much, and once those envelopes were empty, there was no such thing as credit. Started with a diner's card or something like that, where it's, people wanted a quick meal. But there was no such thing as credit. When the money was gone, it's gone. Now, oh, I like that. I'm going to pay for that now. Cha-ching. Instant. And the reason I'm bringing all this up isn't to complain about it all, but can you see how it's been ingrained in our society? Instant. 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 Texting. Remember when the phone was on the wall? Jordan doesn't. The phone was on the wall, and remember when you didn't answer it at dinner? Remember family dinner? How about streaming movies? Remember movie stores? All the VHS tapes all lined up in the glorious row. Gone. Now, if I want to see a movie, instant. We click it on. I have thousands and thousands of movies at our fingertips at the click of a button. We can stream it. When streaming first happened, I went, well, who else is going to watch it at the same time? Because I was so used to cable TV, and when they showed a movie, well, it went out to the masses. Now you can watch it whenever, just on your lonesome. You don't. 24/7 news. That hit it. And you know that a lot of the 24/7 news is not accurate. You got to really be careful. because everybody's trying to put out the news before they have the news. They're all looking for the headlines, and so you got to watch. That's why you'll watch the news. Oh, we have an update. Oh, we have an update. How about the weather? We need to know the weather. Right. No wonder they can't get it right. They are forced by society to have a weather update. My weather network, my weather app changes hourly, quite often. It changes hourly. And I feel bad for them. How about electricity? My grandfather, I've told the story a few times, when we were down by the dock before he was in his 80s, and he was telling me when we were kids, Chris, we all had, me and my brother and my sister, we all had an oil lamp. And if we didn't fill the oil and trim the wick during the day, we didn't have light that night. Think about that. And when in the winter, when it's dark at 4:30, 4:45, unbelievable. How about running water? Instant, people. When I walk up to my tap, a miraculous thing happens. Water comes out. And I can have it cold, or Alice, I can have it hot. Hot water comes all the way up out of the ground. I don't know where it comes from. But boy, it's hot, it's cold, and it's instant. How many of you you've been somewhere, or maybe somebody's been doing repairs in your house, and you walk up to a tap and you forget the water's turned on, you turn it on, there's no water. You know that feeling? How dare that tap not spit out water when I want it to spit it out? And the reason I'm harping on all this is because it's a mindset. It has all created a mindset and a psyche in us. Computers. I remember when the first tabletop computer came up, or desktop computer came up. I was pastoring in Newmarket. I was the youth pastor there. And it was in 1995, Windows 1995. And I remember I had to have a routine. I would walk down to my office and I'd turn on my computer and my monitor. And then I'd go back and then I'd say hi to everybody, grab a coffee, hey, so what's going on? I'd have to kill at least 15 minutes. And I'd go back to sit down at my desk, and maybe it was booted up, ready to go. Now, Crystal and I, it's so funny because I write my message on my laptop, and then I email it to myself, and I download it onto this tablet, right? So I do that. I don't do that during the week because quite often I'll be adding stuff Sunday morning, something just quick into my spirit, and I'll add it Sunday morning. So I'm standing at the bar with all the tablets, and I had set up the music here, which are on tablets as well. And now it's time for me to open up my email and download. And so the email comes up, and there's a little icon that says the title of my message. And I click on it, and it's taking forever. It must have been 8 seconds then. And instinctively I said, I hate waiting. Crystal walks up beside me, and I'm chuckling to myself, and I said, this is taking so long, and look what she looks at the thing, she laughs too. I hate waiting. It's a psyche, and here I am focused on the psyche and still falling for it. Remember encyclopedias? Remember libraries? I haven't been in a library in I don't know how long. And when was the last time you were bothered by an encyclopedia salesman? No. Can't get rid of your encyclopedias, can you? We have a campfire. How about marriage? Once upon a time, you had to get engaged. You had to communicate your bands, report your bands to everybody in case there was anybody who had an issue with you getting married. And then you'd have to put a ceremony together, and you'd have to have vows, and you'd have to have witnesses and all the rest of it. Now you just move in together. Right? And I mean, what I'm saying is that it's just people have this instant, we've lost the art of waiting, of being still, of being quiet. If I stood here for 1 minute, have you ever had a Remembrance Day thing? Where you've been at Remembrance Day and they have that moment of silence? It's like, man, it's taking so long. I bet you 15 seconds went by. It's a psyche. And it sneaks into the way we act with God, the way we treat God. Why isn't he answering sooner? Here's the issue. If you treat God like an instant giver, that goes against his design, and you get frustrated. A lot of the times we pray for things, and most of the times God doesn't answer right away. As how many prayer requests have you had this year that God didn't answer fast enough? Or hasn't answered at all? God isn't ever in a rush. You notice that? See, we have to understand that he lives in eternity and we live in time. He's not bound by time. And so there is no such thing as a rush or being too late. There's no such thing as that to him. There's a prophetic utterance in Habakkuk chapter 2, one of the minor prophets in the Old Testament. It says, if you have a vision, write it down and make it plain. Though it tarry, it will not wait. That just contradicted itself. What do you mean, though it tarry, which means wait, it will not wait? It's because God's trying to say, there's my perspective and yours. I'm not bound by time, you are. In my estimation, in my eternity, it's not waiting at all. There's a purpose for waiting. Waiting is where you prove faith and trust. Same as me getting ready for today. God, the sooner you can tell me, the better, because then I can prepare. It's like, I'm the one that helps you prepare anyway. I'm the one that gives you the content. Do you trust me or don't you? I can expedite the whole getting the message together. You don't have to do it over 7 days. We can do it in an hour. We can do it. You can do it on the spot if you trust me. I don't know if I trust you that much yet. And some of that is about me trusting me. The way God works is counter to the microwave generation. And I think sometimes God even pauses the answer until he sees that we trust him. I really believe that. Because he's more interested in your relationship with him and in your faith in him and your trust in him than he is about giving you anything other than that. Whether it's people or circumstances, money or possessions, he's more interested in your walk with him. David was anointed king at 15 years old. Samuel went to his father's house and found David in the fields shepherding. And at 15 years old, David is anointed king of Israel. He became king of Israel when he was 30. After being chased by the current king of Israel who wanted to kill him. But David was unwavering. Joseph had dreams that he would lead and that he would be a leader and lead his family, in fact. And he waited 13 years before that came about, before he became second in charge of Egypt and ended up leading and rescuing his family from a drought and famine. And those were not easy 13 years. They were in pits and slavery and prison. Abraham was promised a son at age 75. At age 75, you're going to have a boy. He didn't end up having Isaac till he was 100 years old. This takes me back to 2 weeks ago when it's a Mission Impossible. God prides himself in calling you to do things that are way beyond your ability so that you know that it's him. God is never late. You know that getting something too soon, a lot of people, God knows you wouldn't be ready for it. And you just wreck it. You'd wreck it. You think, nope, I'm ready. Relationships. Lonely should not be the motivation to get into a relationship. I'm lonely. Relationships are all about, like when Crystal were getting to know one another, I saw that I had something to give her. And watching her grow in the Lord has been absolutely amazing. And vice versa. I didn't go into this way, but she has become an amazing partner in ministry, which is my number one objective. In my walk with the Lord. And then ministry being secondary. And so that's why God's put us together. So that we can encourage one another towards the Lord. The money. You don't go to God and ask for money because you're broke. Probably broke because you spent too much. Broke doesn't motivate God. Being wise with money motivates God. Like scripture and verse. Those who are faithful with little will be given more. You show that you're faithful with the little, and He'll give you more. Employment. I need a job. Okay, but does that job need you? Right? Some people are just, you go to work for the paycheck. And if you go to work for the paycheck, you'll hate your job. You need to go to be valued to that place. You know, when you get something too soon, when a pregnant woman gets her baby too soon, we call it premature. And premature, the more premature the baby is, the more at risk it is of dying. And God knows that about you with the things that you're asking for, even if they seem noble, even if they seem emergent, even if they seem like it's His will, and it might be His will. But He knows the right time, because if you get it too soon, you'll just wreck it. Relationships are like that. Businesses are like that. You get a home too soon, you're not ready. You get a ministry too soon, you're not ready. You get money too soon, you're not ready. You'll end up wrecking things and destroying things. God knows. And so if you're waiting for something, I'll guarantee this. He's working through something in you. He's incubating you. He's knitting you together for that thing that you've prayed for. He's knitting you together so that at the right time, it'll be birthed. I hope that helps your waiting. Because there's purpose. If God says wait, then you know that there's purpose. I love Ecclesiastes 3 came to mind. God has made everything beautiful in its time. You know, when there's trials, when there's things that you have to go through, I've preached about this so many times. Consider it pure joy when you go through trials of all kinds, because it's working out something in you that's more precious, and it's your faith that's more precious than gold, silver, or precious stones. Your faith is so much. Your faith in God, your trust in God is so much more crucial than that thing you're waiting for. 1 Peter 5:10 says, after you have suffered a while, the God of all grace will then restore you to make you firm, steadfast, and established. Do you want to be firm, steadfast, and established, not moved by every opinion, not moved by every post that on the internet, not moved by every situation? The job is shaky, the relationship is shaky, but you can be firm, steadfast, and established in all those things if you are standing while you're waiting, trusting God. I trust you. I have faith in you. I don't have faith in myself, but I have faith in you, God. That all your promises are true. That no weapon formed against me will prosper. That greater is He that's in me than he that's in the world. That if God is for me, who can be against me? And these are the things that God is doing in us while we're waiting. One more thing before we sum it up. I can't wait affects relationships. Marriage. You're coming from two different experiences. Right? The man comes from this experience and the way mom and dad related to one another, the way siblings related to one another. And then the woman is coming from, this is the way it happened in our home. And guess what? Dating is one thing, but when you come together, and I just want to say, it takes time. It takes time. And I believe, but let's go back to there is a psyche in our culture that says it needs to happen now. I turned on the microwave, I threw my marriage in the microwave, and I had 30 seconds. It better be good. It takes time. I'm going to say, because I've been watching my parents, they're both in their 80s, they've been married for over 60 years, they're still figuring things out. Right? It takes time. And I believe a lot of marriages are breaking down because we want instant. We want it right now. We want him to change. There's an old adage. Most women get married hoping he will change, and he doesn't. Most men marry her hoping she'll never change, and she does. Children, training them, shaping them. It takes time. It takes reinforcement after reinforcement after reinforcement. It doesn't say, teach a child in the way that he will go, and he will not depart from it. That's not what the proverb says. Train. Train somebody. You know, like Brett with your racing, if somebody just came in, they're green. You train them, right? Training, and you don't expect them to have it done right. Where's Jay? Is he here today? No. He works on big trucks, and he was so frustrated because he'd given his life to the Lord, and he hears all of us talking about Scripture and quoting Scripture and knowing this and knowing that about God, and he came to me about a year and a half ago and said, I'm so frustrated. I wish I was further along. And I said, if I showed up at your work and you said, see that engine? Go ahead. Would you be frustrated? Would you look down on me because I didn't know what I was doing? Should I look down on myself? Because no, it's training. It's training. I'm going to quote my dad. He's got this whole thing about Christianity being like school. And when somebody first gives their heart to the Lord, you don't give them the grade 12 exam. Hebrews 5 and 6 talks about that, the milk and the meat. There is a training. And we need to have more grace on our spouses. We need to have more grace on our children. And we need to have more grace for those who are just coming to the Lord. Boy, I thought their lifestyle would change. Oh, are you the transformer now? You introduce them to Jesus because he's the one that transforms. Why don't you let him do it in his good time? He who began a good work, he will be faithful to complete it. He is the author and he is the perfecter of your faith. So let him be the author and perfecter of their faith, would you? Leave him alone. Here's the other side of the coin. I might teach on this next week, but I want to glance on it. As a parent, you can miss seasons by saying, oh, I can't wait for other seasons to come. It's so busy when they're young. I can't wait for them to go to school. I can't wait for them to grow up. I can't wait for them to talk. I love this one. I can't wait for them to walk. Oh, you want the mobile? You want the mobile? Yeah. And so, I heard this I can't remember where I heard it, But somebody just told me about a month ago, we spend the first 2 years teaching children to walk and talk, and spend the next 16 years telling them to sit down and be quiet. We need to learn, this is all about waiting. We need to learn when to speak and when not to speak. When you go, but I can't wait. They need to hear what I have to say. I'll talk about social media. Oh my Lord. I need to post this right now. I can't believe that I read this. I need to post this right now. Give it a rest. Wow. We need to learn when to speak and when not to speak. For both marriage and children. First of all, can I say, calm down first. Jesus said, in your anger, do not sin. The other thing is about telling people about Jesus. I had one guy, I'm going to go on the street corner, I'm going to tell everybody about Jesus. And man, I saw people getting so frustrated. He's reminding everybody why they don't serve Jesus. I don't want to be like that. And one of my favorite stories is in Acts chapter 16, where the Apostle Paul is he's going throughout the land and he's telling all the Gentiles, so the non-Jews, so he's expanding out geographically. I'm going to tell them all about Jesus. It says he heads north to Asia Minor. But the Spirit of Jesus stopped him. Gospel hadn't gone there yet. So he decides to head south. It says the Spirit of Jesus stopped him there. But wait a second, there are people who don't know about Jesus both in north and south. What do you mean don't tell them about Jesus? They're not ready yet. Let God process. And then when it's time, let Him call you. I've been out in the streets for 3 years talking to people. And only lately are people coming to me and saying, tell me about Jesus, or can you pray for me? The last point I just want to make this morning is reaping and sowing takes time. We've already said that waiting, if you're waiting for something, you know that God is processing you, either getting you or that thing that you're praying for ready, so that when it's incubating, so there's purpose, so you're waiting, so that when it happens, you'll be ready. And it won't die and you won't kill it. Maybe you're trying to win someone over, whether it's witnessing or your husband or your wife or your kids are wayward or it's a step parent building. You know, we've watched this whole Brady Bunch thing and all the dynamics Crystal and I have, and it takes time. Reaping and sowing, I want to tell you this. When you sow a seed, how long does it take for you to see a plant? Because reaping and sowing is the analogy that God has chosen in the Bible. He didn't use the slot machine. Ting, ting, ting. Oh, good, there's my sandwich. Reaping and sowing. Reaping and sowing. It takes time. And if you give up watering that thing, it won't grow. If you just say, I'm done, it won't grow. But I want to tell you this, for those who are waiting, for those who are waiting for a seed to grow, Galatians 6, I love the way it's worded. But remember this, God will not be mocked. A person reaps what they sow. If you plant giving up, that's what you're going to harvest. If you plant love, that's what you're going to harvest. If you plant, I can't wait anymore, this needs to happen, you're going to plant death. If you plant God, I'm praying for this, and I know that you make everything beautiful in your time, that I already quoted Romans 8:28, God will work out all things for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose, His time. God is on the move. God is working in whatever you're going for. And they that wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Lord, help us. Teach us. Teach us to wait on you. Not just to wait on the thing that we're waiting for, but to wait on you. To be still and know that you are God. To put away our screens and just sit and be. And to find that strength. To find those wings again. We're tired. We're tired and we're weary. But as we wait on you, as we break, and Lord, I do pray that in each person who's heard this word today, you would break that culture of instant. You'd make us aware of it, so that when we're sitting, waiting for something, we can take that thought captive and say, no, I'm willing to wait. It'll be worth the wait. Teach us, guide us, do something deep in us. Thank you, Lord, that we can come to you with everything, that we're not in this alone, that we don't have to navigate this life alone. I would just mess things up. So, Lord, we're back. We're walking with you. Our eyes are fixed on you.